Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on weird and true mysterious stories, from glitches to the paranormal. Did you know you can support the channel by joining? Or join my Patreon? Something to think about. Now onto the stories. Case file number 960, written by the WillemJamesHuff. The mighty pen that materialized in front of our faces. I've been experiencing difficult to explain or unexplainable, insofar as I'm able to theorize, events for much of my life. This is especially true of things that I lose or that fall into the void, as I nihilistically like to refer to it. So anyways, this happened to me just a couple months ago. My girlfriend and I were working on something together. We are both writers. I'm also a musician, and we collaborate on creative ideas sometimes. We were sitting at my desk and taking down some notes, trying to outline a working plan for us to follow with this particular endeavor. We both prefer to do this the old-fashioned way and physically write things down. So I'm using a pen, and literally mid-word, when I feel like I've totally forgotten my train of thought, I stop writing for a second and look up from my notepad, still holding the pen. When, a few seconds later, I've realigned my thoughts and looked down to continue writing, but the pens are gone. The only other things on the table were my notepad and my girlfriend's pen and notepad. It's not a large table either. So I say, "What the F, where's my pen?" We take everything else off the table. Now there's just nothing on it. Okay, so I suppose maybe somehow I dropped it and didn't notice it leave my hand. I look on the floor and all around the desk and of course not there. So I say, well, I guess it just fell into the void. Because things like this happen relatively often, though most can be rationalized away and ignored, because of that sliver of uncertainty and the unreliability of human senses and memory. What we do next is move the table over a couple feet in case the pen had not only fallen from my hand and onto the floor without my feeling it or producing any audible noise, but also rolled in such a way as to be perfectly hidden under one of the legs of the table. This also wasn't the case. Got on our knees looking more floor level all around for it. This is when it happened. As we are both facing each other right between us, we both watch as the pen just, and I can't stress this enough, appears. Literally materializes in midair in the space between us and proceeds to fall to the floor. Naturally, we were both stunned for a moment and totally speechless, but given the mild frequency that unexplainable crap has happened to us both, coupled with the fact that we are also already inclined towards contemplating and discussing esoteric and abstract hypothetical concepts, perhaps we were slightly more equipped than others to accept this kind of almost unbelievable event. Of course, I'd be skeptical too if it were anyone besides myself, or even if it were me without someone else to corroborate, but it definitely happened, and we both saw it. Case notes are file 960. The mighty pen that materialized in front of our faces. Yeah, this is an extremely vivid memory in my mind of another story where this woman had lost a necklace, the pendant from the necklace, and it had rematerialized eventually after months, I believe, or maybe a year, in the kitchen area, just as she turned the corner heading into it, and it was just frame by frame was described. One instant it wasn't there, and the other it was. There was no fading in or like popping in or, pushing in or anything like that. Just not there and then there. As simple as that. And then it was a freeze frame and then it eventually fell back down after a second. It's like gravity wasn't relevant for a moment. And I think similar in this case to the pen. Not there in one frame and then there in the other. And sort of a pause before it fell to the ground. To me, this could be related to some sort of entity controlling it. And if there was some ghost or spirit that was able to manipulate it, maybe out of this realm and back in, and then hold it there, that would explain why it's levitating. It's not that physics just stopped working, it's that some other force was holding it there for a brief period of time, in that rephasing period, and then it's there. But yeah, DOP is the most common glitch in my opinion from what I've read. It's just everywhere. Maybe the most common reported, there is that problem, reporting bias. Selection sample bias, reporting bias, these are known issues in statistics and trying to understand reality. If something disappears and you just miss it, well, I think it's more likely someone would be willing to share a story like that because no one would think you're crazy, like it happens to everyone. So you have that state where maybe it's not the most common, it's just the most commonly reported. But I do think it's very common either way. But it's funny because it's so common and yet it doesn't really happen to me. It happened once, well twice with 2 tennis balls. But that's it. Figured it would happen more. Maybe eventually. Nothing important, please. Case file number 961, written by Last Queen 86. My daughter vanished at the theater. My daughter and I went to the theater. After the movie ended, we went to the restroom. I went inside the stall first, and in the meantime, she went to another. When I was done, I washed my hands, dried them, and my daughter was there with me and we walked out. By the time we came closer to the exit, I noticed she wasn't there next to me anymore. I looked around and she was gone. I went outside to wait for her. I thought maybe she lost something or forgot something. After a couple minutes, I called her and asked her where she was. She said, "I just got out of the bathroom and I'm waiting for you." I told her that I'm outside, and when she came outside, I asked her why she turned around, and it came out that she was never with me. She did actually not walk out with me. She also did not see me when she got out of her stall. This is so crazy because I remember looking at her when I left the bathroom, and she opened the door for me. Case notes for file 961. My daughter vanished at the theater. So I kind of love this. Like every story I read now, my mind just goes, oh yeah, I read a story like this. There was that one and that one and that one. There's so many parallels now. It's pretty cool. There's a pattern emerging, a tapestry of the universe that I'm finally beginning to understand now with enough stories in my mind compiled up there. But yeah, the other story I was vividly remembering is also involving a theater. Oh, Dave is falling off. 2 friends I went to the theater also went to the bathroom, but then when they came out, both of them were out and describing that case of being outside the bathroom, but eventually one person went back in and then came back out and then they saw each other, but both were adamant that they were outside the bathroom, and there's only one way in or out, so there's no possible way they wouldn't have seen each other, and I don't think either of them were lying. I think they just were out of phase, maybe seeing into a different parallel universe. Universal or multiversal peering, as I like to call it. They were both there, they just couldn't see each other. It's a very curious effect. Bonus file written by WillemJamesHuff, My Childhood Comforter, The Disembodied Arm. My biological dad and mom are now divorced, but before that, they lived in the same trailer and would often fight after I had gone to bed. My bed was against the outside wall of the trailer, and I have distinct memories of an arm that would sometimes come out of the gap between the bed and the wall and pat me reassuringly on the head and shoulder while they argued. What's especially weird is that I do not remember there being any more to it than an arm with a hand, and I don't remember ever trying to see if there was any more to this person. All I remember about the arm was that it was completely white and the fingernails were long. It felt perfectly reasonable to me at the time to just accept that an arm came out of the gap besides the bed. A few days ago, the memory resurfaced and I had a moment of cognitive dissonance. Like, wait, what? A hand? Between the bed and wall? That's weird. Why did I not think that was weird before? I asked my mom about it and she said she does vaguely remember me telling her about that as a kid, that it creeped her out at the time, but that she chalked it up to weird kid brain, and it never came up again. Anyway, I have no explanation for this, but thought it might be worth sharing here. Case notes for the bonus file. My Childhood Comforter, The Disembodied Arm. You know, this story kind of frustrates me, angers me a bit. I don't have kids, but if I do, when I do, hopefully, I think it's very important to ever fight in front of your kids because it makes them feel unsafe and unstable. It's like in the military, you don't have commanding officers or 2 higher ranking officers, like the commander, the captain of the ship, and his subordinate directly below his second in command, arguing with each other. You don't want that. You want to know that the ship is being led properly and there's a clear direction and unity in thought. Like, you're always going to have disagreements, but you should try to keep them civil, and if it's not possible to be civil, at least don't do it in front of your kids, is my belief. I think it sets a wrong message to them and also makes them feel unsafe. I'm lucky. My parents they argued sometimes, but it was never, fiery or anything like that. Just disagreements, but they kept it civil, which is important. Or if they ever argued more than that, they didn't do it in front of me, which I appreciate. Now, about the actual story, the glitch or paranormal supernatural event, was it just a spirit that was able to phase through and touch? Maybe someone related to your family that was indeed, it doesn't sound like they were trying to scare you. It was meant for comfort. To explain why the hand was white or pale, it may be related to how they died, if they drowned or something like that. I imagine there would be carryover in that way. The soul is project its final state on the world. The last reverberation echoes and remains, lingers behind in that state. And my notes are done. Woo! It's just so fun. I love doing this. Hope to do it forever. Like the video, subscribe if you want more notifications, and consider joining the channel or my Patreon. It makes sense. I think the future is heading towards fan funding. It's just more stable. I want to try to build up to a sustainable alternative. I'm not trying to do this to get rich. I mean, obviously it would be nice, but that's not the point. Just want to be stable. That's the main idea. Maybe enough to save up to buy a little cabin in New Hampshire. That'll be awesome. Record some stories by a campfire too. Hey, we'll see.